Morning, Dad.
Hey, going for a run?
Yeah, you should join me like you used to.
Not with my old knees and back.
Try Xanthicin. It could really help. Plus, it's super safe, Dad, and it's good for your heart and brain.
Xanthicin fights aging with astaxanthin, nature's most powerful antioxidant. And with 3 times the absorption and superior purity, it's the brand physicians trust. Find it at getxantho.com and these retailers. Keep doing what you love with Xanthicin.
All right, how's it going, everybody? It is episode 38 here on Hawaii Football Now. We are already barreling like right through May 18th as we record this, May 19 episode when we release it tomorrow midday. We record this at 7 a.m. as we usually do. Back with my man Hunter Hughes. I'm Jordan Helly. We got our guy Jaron on the controls as well. This is Hawaii Football Now, as we mentioned, episode 38, presented by Xanthicin. A big mahalo to our other sponsors as well, Spectrum Mobile and Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. All right, Hunter, before we get started, we got to tell the folks about our good friends over at Xanthicin.
Got to do it. Yeah, you may have heard about this amazing supplement called astaxanthin. Doctors and pharmacists recommend it for everything from joint and muscle function to cholesterol health and cognitive function, even anti-aging, which me and Jordan need that these days. But did you know that not only that, but only one brand delivers 3 times more astaxanthin to your body, making it a better buy than the competition? Introducing astaxanthin, available at getxantho.com, Newtown Square Pharmacy, Down to Earth Kaka'ako, GNC stores, and Pharmacare Hawaii. Learn more at getxantho.com. And have you tried it yet, Jordan? It actually is pretty good, man. It gives you a nice little pep in your step for the rest of your day.
I have not. Working on getting the sample pack. And I don't know if you got one before the show, but nailed the read.
Thank you.
Kudos
that was
to you,
my first
my friend.
one.
Kudos to you. That was well done. Well done. And kudos to our friends at Xanthicin as well for being a longtime sponsor of the pod. We appreciate it very, very much. And speaking of the pod, before we get into the opening drive here, we did want to make a mention that we are now available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. So that's kind of a big deal for us.
Yeah.
We're making the leap a little bit here, reaching the masses. Currently you've been able to catch us on SoundCloud, Facebook, YouTube, the ESPN Honolulu website. We do appreciate all the diehards, all the loyals who have been with us kind of from the beginning, that have been able to check us out on those platforms. But now you can kind of take us on the go a little easier via the apps on your phone. You can plug it into your car as you drive around and hopefully not get stuck in traffic like Coach Chris Brown does from time to time, when you got to go on H1 at inopportune hours. And maybe the best way to avoid that is to be like Chris Brown and just get to the office at 6 a.m. and avoid all of the work traffic.
For the sake of everyone involved, we need to keep him as positive as long as possible.
That's right.
Any reason for the Hulk to come out? I mean, he could terrorize the whole city if he chose to. He has that power in those shoulders.
That he does. Just with a quick little flex. That's all it'll take. Chris Brown, former guest on the show. And speaking of former guests, we had Armani Eden, one of the quarterbacks on the roster, with us last week, who will be in a very, very deep competition for the job. And a lot of fun talking to him last week. He, as one of the core guys who have been part of this program now through a couple of iterations, who have been with the program for a couple of years now. Of course, you got guys coming in like Yellen, the transfer from Pittsburgh. You got some other guys in the mix, the walk-on Jake Farrell. You got the incumbent, if you will, to an extent, in Braden Shager. And it was fun to talk to Armani, kind of more big picture, sort of the transition of the program, the ownership that this group of players has taken of the program through the transition, right? A little bit of limbo there, going from Todd Graham to Timmy Chang. And I was always sort of impressed with guys like Armani and the rest of sort of the core of returnees that kind of took it upon themselves to keep this thing going and keep this program heading in a positive direction. And then I think things have kind of taken off with the new staff in terms of momentum, being able to get back out there in the community and off of a positive spring game. But just kind of my takeaway, Hunter, off of our conversation last week with Armani and talking to some folks who got a chance to listen to the interview. But it was nice talking with him, a good young man and a guy who's going to be in the mix in what is a crowded quarterback room. But, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, no, never. I remember my senior year at UH, we had 8 quarterbacks. Jordan, we had
It's where they're at now.
Yeah. One thing with Armani, I got to spend some time with him outside of just football context. He's a leader, and that's one thing, regardless of skill set, that I always like in a quarterback is someone who would categorize as a leader, can kind of rally guys around him, push people, and just kind of, if you see his style of play, he's kind of a Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray kind of dual threat, scrambling kind of quarterback to extend plays. And I just see grit and tenacity out of a guy like him. And other guys in the field get inspired by that sort of quarterback play, in my experience. So, talking with other receivers these past couple of years, has great morale and great connection with those guys. So, who knows what's going to happen this fall in the coming months with this quarterback competition, but he's one of those leaders, I think, that this team needs to kind of get this Timmy Chang era up and off on the right foot, Jordan.
Yeah, having those kind of locker room guys, right, at the very least, is important. And like you mentioned, you guys had 8 quarterbacks your last year at UH. Like June used to carry double-digit quarterbacks. Like his theory was you could never have enough quarterbacks. It made for competition. It made for, when you're running the run and shoot, which is not necessarily what Coach Chang has in store, but when you're throwing that many balls in practice and you're running that many routes, like it helps to have arms to just get as many reps as possible in there when you're preparing and getting through the week of practice and the weeks of the season. So that'll be fun to watch. Our best to Armani, our best to, the quarterback room and that group. But we're excited to see how that kind of folds under offensive coordinator Ian Shoemaker and what the future will present, because as he pointed out, right, in our conversation, anywhere Coach Shoemaker has gone, man, he scored points. That's sort of his MO. So we're, optimistic when it comes to that. Speaking of the future, last week we discussed a little bit about the reports that Hawaii's home and home with BYU is off in 2024 and 2025. The logical explanation is because the Cougars are leaving Independence and moving to the Big 12. Their schedule sort of gets filled out naturally that way. They are obligated to play all those 9 Big 12 games. Less room for some of these non-conference previously scheduled matchups. There was already a clause in the agreement contract that if they had joined a conference, it wouldn't. They basically had a free out if that was the case. And so off the heels of that, moving quickly, UH administration seems to have come to an agreement with Sam Houston State to fill some of those dates in the future. And they've actually reportedly agreed to a home and home contract with the 2-time defending FCS champs, the 1AA level. Very good program in Huntsville, Texas. That's about 65 miles, like an hour or so north of Houston, about 3 hours southeast of Dallas, sort of that region of Texas. They play good football down there, and the Bearcats at that level have sort of usurped North Dakota State as the current power, even though North Dakota State seemingly is right there every year, like in the Final Four. Right. And unlike the Bison, they are making the move up, very App State-like. Remember App State, Armani Edwards, right? Was that the quarterback's name? The lefty went up to Michigan, beat him in the Big House, played a little bit awesome in the NFL. That's sort of our time. They're making the move. They're actually transitioning up to the FBS level starting next year. They'll play in Conference USA. So they actually play in the WAC right now. The WAC restarted. Football is more of a 1AA FCS football conference. So Hawaii, an old WAC school, Sam Houston State, an old WAC school. really nothing else in common, but they've got a home and home schedule 2024, 2025. This according to FBFschedules.com. Some of the local reporters have reported it as well here in Hawaii. FBSschedules.com getting like a freedom of information contract from Sam Houston State. So I think that's where some of this emanated from. But as I mentioned, the Bearcats, good football program. That transition isn't always necessarily the easiest, but we've seen schools like Appalachian State, have a fair amount of success moving up. And I got to imagine that Sam Houston State will be a very, very quality opponent, even as they make that transition. Who knows how good they'll be at the FCS level again this year in their final year down, at the second tier. And 2024 scheduled to take place in Huntsville, Texas. That game will be on Saturday, September 14th, and then a return game on Oahu Saturday, September 6th. So some early season matchups, and the home and home will begin up in the Lone Star State. So, for those diehards out there that like to travel to a lot of these away games, a little Texas road trip has been a little while for the Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Anytime you go to Texas, they're always going to have good recruits. They may not be, 4 or 5 star guys, but if you grow up in Texas, you're just around good football from the time you're, 10, 11, 12 years old. And so you're kind of raised in that football is king kind of mentality down there. And some of these teams, even though you might think that they're a sleeper on your schedule, like they come to play, man. So I'm excited to kind of see what that looks like in the years to come. The main story though here, Jordan, is this team seems to jump up into the Division I level, is to make sure that Hawaii does not jump down with the current state of our stadium, our infrastructure, everything like that. And I know that, the powers are trying to do everything that they can to see that doesn't happen. But when you were talking about making the jump, I wanted to make sure we don't fall down, if you will, into a lower level, because UH definitely deserves to remain a Division I school, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and at least the signs are indicative of they're trying to make the investment to make sure that is a reality going forward for the University of Hawaii football program. And we know the stadium situation, and that is a lot of the worry, that is a lot of the concern when it comes to where the home for Hawaii football, where the fit is. And here's a school in Sam Houston State that's got a lot of aspirations, right? That has made a big commitment. And for Hawaii, I think the other aspect of it, we mentioned the Texas element group that, under Coach Todd Graham made a lot of headway, made a lot of inroads in terms of recruiting Texas and getting players from that part of the country, which hasn't always been a pipeline for the University of Hawaii. And now you schedule a couple of games there for some of those guys. Well, at least one game there, a couple of games against a Texas opponent. For some of these guys on the roster, I'm sure that's a big deal, right? You get a chance to go play a little closer to home in 2024 for some of the young guys that'll still be around, right? That's only really a couple of seasons off. So some of these young guys who have come in with Texas ties, and for this group that has shown the ability now under the current coaching staff to kind of recruit, nationally. They're a lot of it sort of Polynesian ties, but they've been able to pull guys from the Southwest, some Arkansas transfers. They've been able to kind of keep at least a presence down in the Southeast when it comes to Georgia, Florida, and if you can, you're not necessarily getting the huge recruits out of Texas, but if you can continue to have a presence out there, that's not a bad thing. And so playing a game there, playing a game that could be serving as a incentive for some of these guys who may be wanting to look elsewhere to go play college football, but a chance to play at home, at least in a game that could be a destination type thing for some of these recruits, I don't think is a bad thing at all.
Yeah, totally. We're kind of seeing that with all of the big name Bishop Gorman guys coming out of school, that they are naming Hawaii in their top 8, top 10. Up there with the biggest schools there are, Jordan. That one cornerback who's a 3-star is getting offers from LSU, from Arkansas, from Oregon, and then right up next to all those logos is the UHH. It's just awesome. There's something different about what this staff is kind of bringing to the table, and I wouldn't put Texas out of the reach of these guys with what they've been able to accomplish even in this offseason. It's a very active coaches room up there right now in the way that they are recruiting and going about things. So yeah, I think you bring up a good point, and the future looks bright, man. It really does.
Yeah, there was the offensive lineman too, right? I'm trying to go back and look through our previous notes. The big offensive lineman wasn't he out of Texas?
I think so.
Polynesian kid. That kind of spurred my my thought process when you mentioned that, because I'll probably go find it later, and I'm sure there's probably a listener who's going to listen to this and be able to think of it right off the top of their head because they're locked into some of these recruiting things. But yeah, there was the young man. He's like a 4-star or 5-star. He listed like his top 12 or 15 or something, and Hawaii was in there, and everybody was like, "Whoa, that's not like all the other schools," Right. And I swear he was a Texas kid, and if at the very least, right, if there's, for whatever reason, he's seriously considering Hawaii, this is a nice thing that they can kind of throw back at the young man. Say, hey, we're going to go play a team back in Texas. Your family can all come out to watch. We plan to do this more in the future. We'll make it a priority to make sure you and the rest of the Texas boys get a chance to play in your home state at least once in your career. That counts for something. So it'll be pretty interesting to see. Any final thoughts sort of on this matchup with Sam Houston State? I'm sure some will think, FCS opponent, 1AA, kind of your freebie game, but I get the feeling this will be anything but.
Yeah, exactly. I always kind of noticed when we would play teams like this, practices were always kind of a lull. Guys didn't really take it that seriously, but I don't feel like we can do that with a school like Sam Houston State. As they're on the rise, they've got a culture of winning, which only comes with being disciplined, with having a great plan of attack. And so, I've got them maybe not necessarily circled, but they're not an easy win in the 24-25 years for us. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and a new opponent for us, Jordan, that we haven't really gotten to see before.
Yeah, that's the other exciting thing too, right? Something new.
Yeah.
Something new on the schedule, and a chance to venture outside of the Pacific and Mountain time zones, and a pretty cool road trip, I think. Basically an hour outside of Houston for the Hawaii fans, as well. One last little note before we get into our halftime break here. Jared Smart, former University of Hawaii receiver, who just recently finished up his eligibility, got a roster camp invite, or a rookie camp invite with the Cardinals, and it went well, and he is signed with Arizona, so he will be part of the off-season program. What that guarantees him, really nothing other than a chance to go to minicamp, to go to training camp, and hopefully survive the myriad of cuts that come your way before you make the final 53-man roster. So, but huge for Jared. And I think kind of funny, that the Cardinals, who also had a very strong interest in JoJo Ward,
that's right,
when he came out of the University of Hawaii. JoJo now employing his talents over in the USFL, but something about that Cardinals organization, that they seem to like these highly skilled, highly refined University of Hawaii receivers. And I will say, if there's any roster that a receiver would like to be on, because they carry more receivers than just about anybody with Cliff Kingsbury, not a big tight end guy, not a lot of big 21 guy. He loves 4 wide, and so you need receivers. It's the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and not to mention Cole McDonald as well, getting an opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. That's
the Cardinals just a couple years ago. I don't know if we can quite call it a pipeline just yet, Jordan, but it is somewhat of a pattern emerging for our guys, and this makes me really happy for someone like Jared Smart, who had an unbelievable 2020 and 2019 couple years for us, had a pretty rough last year for us at University of Hawaii, and the fact that he's still getting an opportunity at the next level, in spite of, I don't know how else to put it, a very down year for our offense under the Todd Graham era. That gives me a lot of hope just for our guys, that just because you had a bad year doesn't mean it's completely over at the next level. Film speaks for itself. Keep going, persevering, and just see where the chips fall. I'm stoked for him because he deserves it. He played unbelievable for us those first couple of years he was here.
Yeah, you think of some of those athletic catches, right? And when he was paired out there with some of those guys, and I always think back to that catch in the corner of the end zone against New Mexico. Was that? It might have even been like a 2-point conversion, but it was just ridiculous, the athleticism and as you mentioned, the sure-handedness of Jared Smart. So all the best to him with the Cardinals. You got some other guys out there in some of the rookie camps hoping to latch on and sign some contracts with the NFL squads, and we'll keep you updated as we learn more about those individuals as well. But we got to head into our halftime break here, but we do want to give a big shout out to one of our other sponsors, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union is committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branches located statewide and convenient digital banking services as well. As a leader in providing support for the islands, Hawaii USA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing successes with members, local businesses, and the greater community. Originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators, Hawaii USA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since expanded to other areas of community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit hawaiiusafcu.com. Again, big mahalo to Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. All right, second half coming up.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on episode 38 of Hawaii Football Now. Jordan and Hunter back with you. Again, big mahalo to everybody for hanging with us throughout all of these. It's been, 7 months, even longer than that, I think, right? We started this back in September. So this is going on 8 months or so. It's been a lot of fun for us. Been a lot of fun sort of going through the transitions as well. Been a lot of fun hearing from our regular commenters, our guy Kavika on Facebook, often our guy Al on YouTube. And Al had asked about, the Call the Coach with Timmy Chang back at the end of April 26th. He and our guy Kanoa Leahy were on the headset for that one. And he actually shared quite a bit. And, to Al's question, I thought it would make sense to kind of touch on some of the topics that Timmy brought up, especially because, a lot of them weren't necessarily time sensitive. They were sort of in the mix of spring practice, but a lot of the things that people had asked about were sort of big picture questions, and always, big shout out to the listeners and the callers on Call the Coach and even some of the daily radio shows right on ESPN Honolulu. They always ask good questions, man, and get you going, and pretty funny sometimes too, just how well and informed and insightful they are. And so kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. It's been a couple of weeks, but we've had a couple of guests in the mix as well that kind of pushed this down the docket a little bit. But Hunter, it was kind of interesting that, he talked about, some of the more, I guess, X's and O's, but somebody asked about the offense, right? And installing the offense, how that's gone. And he said, basically they wanted to install a big offensive playbook and put just about everything in. They can sort of pare it down as they need to, as the season goes on, week to week, game planning and whatnot. But they threw a lot at these guys during spring, and we'll see kind of how it sticks.
Yeah, and Armani kind of made mention of that in last week's episode, that we haven't, as fans, seen everything that they have installed, which I always appreciate as a player, giving a bigger install in the spring as opposed to the fall. It's always tougher when you try to install during the season. The season is already such a grind for us as players with the travel. sort of extent that we go through, the scheduling as a student athlete at University of Hawaii. And so having all of that in the bag, if you will, just makes it a little bit easier for coaches to kind of shift gears on the fly, because we already know what you're talking about. And so it's just a way for people to get on the same page quicker. And so, yeah, I have no doubt with Coach Shoemaker's experience, obviously Coach Timmy Chang and his experience as a player, they want to be probably pretty extensive in the types of plays they call and trying to get points on the board. I mean, that also goes to show it's hard to categorize this type of offense, which is why they've kind of skirted. Yeah, we're not exactly run and shoot. We're kind of run and shoot. We're kind of mix and match. As long as we don't get the Todd Graham era, what did they call it, Jordan? The run and gun,
I think was the, yeah.
Well, whatever it was 3rd and out a lot. So I'm hoping for something different than that this fall, which I think it's pretty safe to say we're going to see something different than that.
Yeah, it's the early stages of the relationship, right? You don't want to put a label on it.
That's right.
Too much pressure. Too much pressure. You don't want to start defining things and then put yourself in a box, and you may be rushing things along or something like that. So, yeah, they've neglected to put a name tag on what the offense will be. And again, you can call it what you want, right? I mean, even the roll, run and shoot wasn't your, traditional run and shoot, and how they mixed in run pass option and things like that. And so even when teams label things that's just window dressing a lot of times, because these guys are going to be incorporating all kinds of different things, and seeing how it works basically. So, and then defensively, he talked about, Coach Yoro wanting to get a lot of the base and the blitz packages in. And we got a chance to talk to Coach Yoro, and he kind of touched on it, right? You got to be multiple, you got to be versatile, but you got to be able to get after the quarterback. And Coach Chang basically saying, without wanting to give away too much, it's always sort of this dance that you get in some of these call to coach sessions or the interviews, right? And I totally get it. I don't blame them. But it's like, you want to give something to the fans. You want to be able to share, but you don't want to give too much away. You don't want to give too much away. You don't want to, reveal the state secrets. But Coach Chang kind of echoed that, and he said, we want to be attack minded, and he kind of left it at that. So how they attack, where they attack from, didn't quite divulge, but he said they wanted to be attack minded defensively.
That in and of itself, Jordan, I'd like to just pose this question. I don't know if opposing teams, and I might be completely wrong here, I would love to be wrong, I don't know if they have assistants scouring the internet for
like a GA or something, right?
like scouring local Honolulu media and Facebook groups and Reddit community I don't know, groups that are talking about University of Hawaii and schemes and stuff, that I don't know if talking about everything is necessarily giving away the playbook. Like, who's actually listening to it? I don't know.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, are they going to spend their time doing it, or is it sort of an understood thing within the industry where it's like, all right, we're all not going to talk about it, so don't waste your time going to listen to it. I would say, like somebody like Alabama, right, which has a staff of like 97,000 people. Where Nick Saban's got like offensive analysts and defensive analysts and quality control coaches. And it's like, I don't know, those guys got to do something, right? Like they have so many people on staff. So I don't know, maybe somebody's out there with the internet these days, and you can aggregate things, right? You put the keywords into Google, and all of a sudden it spits it back out, episode 37 of Hawaii Football Now or something. I don't know. How these people work. It's like espionage out there. This is a level above my pay grade, Hunter.
Yeah, but maybe they're like internet hired guns. Like, they got hire me, and I'll give you everything the internet has from the last 6 months on LSU or something like that.
Maybe right. Yeah, it's Coach Kelly down at like a donors dinner in Ruston, Louisiana, that he's trying to, and that he thinks it's a closed room, but all of a sudden,
a security cam audio recording of him in a booster talking about a blitz package. I mean, this is juicy for this.
This is what they do on 3rd and short inside the red area 90% of the time. It's like
a coach like Lane Kiffin, who is almost crazy with the way that he talks about stats, percentages, down and distance, tendencies. And someone like that with an Ole Miss SEC budget, maybe that's our calling, Jordan. Maybe we start this up, man. Maybe we get our
some contract services.
We get our producer Jaron on the keys, and we just go to town, man, finding this stuff.
I think we're onto something. We'll go talk to some of the coaches and see if there might be some interest here. We'll start hacking into the internet and finding everything we need to know about Vanderbilt come week 0. That should be a lot of fun. The other couple of things that Coach Chang sort of offered up somewhat unsolicited and just kind of talking generally about the team. He said they're excited about the guys they have. Defensively, he actually singled out Jonah Welch, the Kamehameha graduate, made his way back to the University of Hawaii, talked about Welch's leadership and getting after the ball, getting after the quarterback in spring ball. So I thought that was kind of interesting, unprompted. He mentioned Jonah Welch Kahavai, I think some will be familiar with, and pretty cool to see. We saw a little bit last year, a little bit in the spring, and apparently they're expecting some big things out of him because that is an area of need, and we've seen that through the transfer portal. They've been going after defensive backs too, but defensive linemen in particular.
Yeah, Jonah is kind of emerging as not only a leader on the field, but definitely one in the locker room too. I mean, we saw the spring game, he was the one to lead the ha'a for us. And there may be more, prominent or gifted, players on the field, but we need guys like himself with local presence, local understanding, and that just kind of carry the stick, if you will, especially on the defensive side of the football. I feel like we've kind of had this just kind of tradition, if you will, of leaders on the defensive side of the football, more so I would say than the offense, at least in the last 10 15 years for University of Hawaii. And so it seems as though that might fall to Jonah this year for our team. And great guy, used to train with him at Tactical Fitness, shout out to those guys down in Kaka'ako. Even as a freshman, him and Shevin were down there training really hard, trying to get ready for coming into University of Hawaii. So stoked to see him just a few years later kind of coming into his own. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm excited for him. I remember him in high school, and he's the guy I think that could contribute in a big way. And apparently the coaching staff is pretty excited about what he can do here. We mentioned, Coach Chang is excited about what they're doing in the portal. We've kind of talked at length about what, that has produced in terms of the guys coming in as that news has become available. The other big topic of conversation, somebody asked about the uniforms and, what Coach Timmy Chang has in mind. Obviously, there's the transition to Adidas from Under Armour and what that relationship could bring, how that can get creative. Under Armour, of course, had some pretty cool iterations of the uniform. I would say some of the specialty unis, whether it was the battleship unis last year, whether it was some of the throwbacks, which were probably my favorite, right? Like the ones they wore up at the horseshoe and some of the military inspired ones as well. So I'm kind of curious, what the partnership with Adidas will look like. Timmy did offer up that his favorites were the all blacks at home, which kind of spanned a few different generations and eras. And then he also really liked the gray and white with the silver helmets of the Colt era. And so I don't know if that was too much of a tease as to where he's going, but I know you got thoughts on the fashion, Hunter.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because each brand, I don't think it's necessarily a copyright issue, but from a brand integrity standpoint, I would say they don't like to have anything that resembles a previous brand or anything like that. So let's just take the white with the gray pants with the tribal around the leg kind of the classic Colt Brennan style uniform for us. Rolo really tried to bring that back for us, but because that was a Nike uniform, Under Armour couldn't quite go there with us, because it's not so much they want to do the same thing. They don't want to look like they are just doing what Nike did. And so it's more of a brand awareness and a brand understanding thing, that each brand wants to do their own thing with University of Hawaii. I mean, one giant step forward that I really hope remains is the islands. I've got it on the side of my hat actually on one of these, but I think that was one of the coolest leaps forward for our uniforms, having the whole state represented on the side of our helmet. And it just looks dirty, man, having the islands kind of wrapped around the ear hole of our helmet. So I hope that, if we're able to, can still remain. That's one of my favorite touches these last couple of years.
I wholeheartedly agree. The islands have to remain. I think,
Yes.
you know, the H on one side, the islands on the other, it's perfect. There's symmetry and balance there. As you mentioned, you know, it is emblematic of the entire state. It is the state's university. I am wholeheartedly on board with keeping that, and it makes sense. And when you talk about sort of the design integrity, right, of these different. I mean, Hawaii's kind of gone through the gamut. Like early June, it was like Reebok, then it was Nike, then it was Under Armour, and now it's Adidas. So we've kind of run the spectrum when it comes over the last 25 years or so. So that the challenge is to keep it fresh, right? And you got to keep up in it, and it's not like they've got the budget of Oregon when it comes to coming up with some of these. And so on that note, Coach Chang did give up that or divulge that he said, yeah, not sure if the gray and white are in the cards right now. And I think for a lot of the reasons, he didn't elaborate, but I think for a lot of the reasons that you put forth there, Hunter, and I'm glad you bring up the islands, because this sort of gives me, I'll take a little liberty here, because my pitch always, and this is not related to football, but this is related to Hawaii athletics. Those will remember at Stan Sheriff, there used to be the islands at center court. The island chain used to be the mid-court logo.
That's awesome.
And I think at a time they had the old UH rainbow logo on top of that as well. But when they went to the rebranding of the green H with the top of trim, they removed the islands from mid-court. And I have longed for the return of that. And I don't know whose decision that is. And I get it, the logistics and the money and all this kind of stuff. But I just am a big believer that the island chain should be on the court for basketball games. Kind of like, and you can still put the logo, right? You can still put the logo over it. Like, absolutely. It's not an original idea. Like Texas does it, right? They've got the Longhorn over the outline of Texas. A bunch of other schools do it. But Hawaii, man, it's the University of Hawaii. It's the only Division I program. Like you gotta put it out there.
Yeah,
put the islands back.
I think that's, we're bigger than just Honolulu. It's the whole state, and of all the states in the greater United States, we have one of the most unique ones out there, plain and simple. Anyway, for me, I'm a designer by trade. Whenever I'm not on the air here with you, Jordan, I red light as a graphic designer in the Honolulu area. So anytime you can use icons, images like the island chain in our branding, I think it's a win. There's just so much you can do with it. However, and I think our listeners would appreciate this, we need to have some sort of homage back to the rainbow days, man. We haven't seen the green, the red, the yellow, the white in a long time. Quite honestly, really since the Chow era, did we kind of do some new alternative option on the vintage University of Hawaii Rainbow Warrior look. We haven't done that in a long time. I know it costs money for new uniforms, blah, blah, blah. It's our history. It's who we are. And that's part of the recruiting process too, is having, I want to say bare minimum 3 uniforms, a home and away and an alternative. We got to be able to do that as a team, in my opinion.
I'm with you. You got to keep up with the other schools, right? That have all these different cool uniforms. And I will say, recently, I think the university has started to incorporate and embrace the old rainbow logo more than in previous years, and I think that's awesome. I think that what we're seeing across the athletic department, from Timmy Chang to Rich Hill, is sort of the embracement of history, and really honoring the past and incorporating the past into the present. And I think you've really seen that from a couple of the new hires, as well as some of the guys that have already been here, right, over time at some of the different sports. But I think, kind of bookending things, right? Football on the front end, baseball on the back end, two programs that have had a lot of success, particularly baseball, at the University of Hawaii. Seeing that has been fun to witness, and I think is a big deal. Had a caller ask about the quarterbacks, which was another fun conversation, and Coach Timmy Chang sort of again, also smartly, in my opinion, dancing around the question, for lack of a better term. Like, he didn't commit to anyone, and I didn't expect him to commit to anyone, especially in that forum. And we get it. We totally get it. But I think does sort of signal that it is still very much an open competition. And we've touched on that a few times here throughout the last couple of episodes, especially with having Armani on. But Coach Chang, saying that it's open, and he mentioned a few of these guys by name, and really it's the usual suspects. But that will be, I think, the biggest storyline going into the off season is going to be, who's the guy? Who's the guy
totally.
gonna be?
I think one thing that we're not really mentioning is the fact that all these quarterbacks have decided to stay. The transfer portal deadline has come and gone. I believe that was like May 1st, Jordan. I think that was the date. And the fact that they have retained these guys, even in sight of, I mean, that was after knowing they're bringing in another guy, or at least ominously knowing that they're bringing in another guy. Probably even giving those guys the option of, hey, no one's won the job yet. I mean, that was pretty clear at the end of spring. Not sure what your plans are, but if you did choose to leave, like, hey, we're supportive of you and on your journey. They've all decided to stay. They want to be a part of this. And I just think it's going to be a fantastic and fierce quarterback battle this fall. And also kudos to Coach for not naming anybody, because it affects so much. From a team perspective, the minute you name who your starting quarterback is, not only do other quarterbacks kind of wean away and lose interest and morale, but then the whole team now has to kind of get around, okay, this is our guy. This is one of our leaders. This is how we are starting to identify ourselves as a team. It's a huge part of the identity of a football team, is who our quarterback is. So I like that that's still yet to be determined. And because fall time is one of the most critical times of coming together as a team, which
and that's really not that far off. Some of the other names that Coach Chang mentioned, wide receivers, he talked very highly of Zion Bowens, who appears to have a big role moving forward. He had high praise for the leadership of the linebacker core in general. And I think that is a position group that a lot of people kind of have circled as one of the deeper and
I agree.
high expectations group. And we've talked to Chris Brown about that as well. Loved what he's gotten out of Dedrick Parsons so far. And I think that's no surprise after we saw what he did last year after coming over from Howard. And then special teams. He's excited about the special teams. He mentioned, Matt Shipley had himself a great spring game. You mentioned Matt Shipley, obviously what Kyler Halverson brings in terms of his leg strength, whether it be on kickoffs or however he's going to contribute. So those were some of the other things that Coach Chang had mentioned specifically in the Call to Coach back on April 26th.
Yeah. I mean, just being down there on the field too with Shipley's kind of precision, it reminds me a lot of Rigo Sanchez whenever Rigo was our kickoff place kicker and punter, kind of jack of all trades guy for us. And obviously those listening know that Rigo is the starting punter for the Indianapolis Colts now. Just kind of a professionalism in the way that he goes about his business that I know he's probably going to get an opportunity at the next level. And a refocusing Jordan on special teams is something that I think UH needs to take seriously with how poorly we did this past year.
Yeah, well, it was one of the weaknesses for sure. And I think, having a designated special teams coordinator is a big step forward in how Coach Timmy Chang at least had a chance to build his coaching staff and obviously prioritize that. So it should be fun to watch. That's always sort of been a hallmark of Hawaii teams over the years as well.
Right.
Has been good special teams. So kind of getting back to that, and at least that's the hope. But they've liked what they've seen so far during spring, which is always a little bit of a half picture, right? Because it's not like you're sending guys down on kickoff full go. You're not rushing the kicks or anything like that at full go in some of these tempo periods. So yeah, that's always a little bit to come with it too. All right, wrapping up the episode with some questions from our listeners via the comments in YouTube and Facebook, as we mentioned. Kavika as well, sort of sending his best out to the Chang Ohana via Facebook. On YouTube, we had our guy Al ask some questions as well. We mentioned some of them already, but he also asked about, how the depth chart looks going forward after spring ball with the new transfers. When does fall practice start? And sort of how that all goes. And it's yet to be seen, I guess, would be my answer to Al in that, right? We know that fall camp will start, basically early August as they get ready for the game in late August against Vanderbilt. But things are in flux just because, you see the guys out there getting the workouts in, a lot of that sort of player driven, unsupervised workouts. But as they get into the regimented summer program, now that the semester's over, some guys can start getting in the mix that'll enter as transfers. Some of the high school guys as well that'll be coming into the program. So there'll be a lot of additions throughout the next couple of months in how that affects the depth chart.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. And I think a lot of that won't really get decided until a little ways into fall camp. Once you get those guys in pads, once you get those guys contacting, once you get them, performing in game-like situations. So it's a lot of wait and see at this point to see, making sure all those guys who said they were going to come, and then seeing how they perform throughout the summer, but particularly once you get into fall camp.
Totally. There's a lot of moving pieces right now, a lot of guys still to come in to be determined what their value to the team is going to be. One of his questions about, quarterbacks and could some of them play other positions. I really feel at this point, and not to dog him at all for his ability as a quarterback, but I could see Chad Owens Jr. kind of doing some other stuff. He's got some versatility and obviously the marketing story taking after his dad. I could see him being kind of a jack of all trades guy for us. He's just kind of got that intangible athletic ability that goes beyond the quarterback position. And so as a walk-on, you want to do anything you can to see the field. And I know this is just his first year, but that's kind of my hot take for the years to come for that young freshman that we expect a lot from the pedigree that he has. So just a thought right there.
Yeah, and that's something we were asked as well, right? With the number of quarterbacks, do any of these guys play any other positions?
Yeah.
Not typically, right? Not typically, but you do have some guys that you would consider athletes out there, and if you can find a way to get them on the field in some form or fashion, yeah, why not, right? And especially as you mentioned for walk-on guys, like those guys they'll find any way to help contribute with the team. They're hungry. They want to prove a spot. They want to go earn a scholarship. So we'll see, right? I think Hunter's fair analysis there. It's like, hey, if it's a crowded room and you've got skill sets that can help or at least contribute and get you on the field other than just at quarterback, not always a bad option, right? So that'll be fun to see. That'll be fun to see, how some of these competitions play out, how some of the new additions, especially, at quarterback, especially, in the defensive backfield. I think there'll be a lot of fresh faces there. And where guys move around. I mean, we saw that even last year, right? Guys that ended up leaving, but a guy like Solo Turned started on the offensive side of the football, made it over to the defensive secondary and played pretty well there, right? Jonah Laulu, who played tight end in a bowl game a couple of seasons ago, and then all of a sudden he's like one of the most highly desired defensive end recruits in the transfer portal and ends up at Oklahoma. Like some of these things will catch you by surprise, and all of a sudden these guys take off and do really well. So, kind of to the point of Al's question, depth chart, where guys are at, it's still very much up in the air. We're still a little ways away from seeing where these guys may end up and where their true home is.
Oh yeah, totally. It's nothing is set in stone yet. Coach Chang didn't really point to anything in his interviews, wisely, as I put earlier. So we're kind of in that time, Jordan, where we can just speculate and hope that we're right. There's not much else to do other than sit back, relax, and wait for the show to start at this point in the year.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. A lot more to talk about next week as well, but a little quick overtime segment as we tie a bow on episode 38. My quick one is just UH baseball. I got a chance to go down to the park Thursday and Friday, did a little television work, and just the wild swings. Like, they've dropped the opener in 3 straight series, but yet have won each of those series. They've won 6 series in a row, including 5 in conference play after getting shellacked on Thursday night in the opener against CSUN 14-2. They come back, win Friday 3-1. Then they come back and win 10-0 or something like that on Sunday. They just keep finding a way, and they have won more Big West games than at any point in their history in the Big West Conference since making the move over from the WAC. They've already won more series. They've already guaranteed themselves a non-losing record in conference. Like, this is one of the best seasons in a while. And the turnaround from the beginning of the season till now, Rich Hill's done a terrific job. So I just wanted to give a little shout out there. They've got 7 games left, a road trip to UC San Diego this weekend, a midweek game or a Monday game on the back end at Cal Baptist. And then they come home for the last 3 of the season at home against second place Cal Poly. And they've got a chance to maybe surge all the way up into second place. Nobody's catching UC Santa Barbara for the conference title. And nobody but Santa Barbara is going to the dance. It's going to be a 1-bid league again this year. But just all kinds of momentum that this team is building and doing it with a lot of local kids. Like, routinely 9 of the 10 guys in the lineup, that includes the pitcher and the DH, are like Hawaii high school kids. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, no, it's they've got a lot of grit, and they just keep going. In other news, whenever this drops tomorrow, people should know, if they don't, Tiger Woods is back, folks. Has announced that he is playing officially in the PGA Championship at Southern Hills, which, Jordan, you know this, my family lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where Southern Hills is. My whole family's going down there. I'm a little jealous I'm not home. Tried to get my my relatives to Airbnb their houses to these PGA guys for ridiculous sums of money, but none of them took me up on that, which I'm a little upset about. I mean, shack up with your friend for the chance of renting your home out for like 12 grand for the week. They would pay it. They really would. But yeah, Tiger's back. He's playing. Southern Hills is actually it's a man-made facility. So some of the hills and the slopes are pretty unusual in the way it just goes up and down and up and down. So we'll see how Tiger's leg holds up, but Big Cat is in the field, man. I'm stoked.
Oh yeah, we're going to be watching. That's going to be a lot of fun. No Phil in the field, but that's all right. Tiger is there. All right, that'll do it for us here on episode 38. Again, big mahalo to Xanthison, our presenting sponsor, as well as the good folks over at Spectrum Mobile and Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. All right, Hunter, this has been fun as always. We'll do it again next week. Big shout to our guy Jaron on the controls as well. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week on episode 39. This has been Hawaii Football Now. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.